Hey guys, it's Andre from the High Performance Academy. We're here at SEMA with Scott from Emtron Engine Management. Now, Scott, it's a brand new engine management system you've just brought out to the market. Tell us a little bit about it. First of all, what was the impetus to actually design a new ECU?
What I was looking for was a really high-end engine management that could do a lot more. I could see in the future that we need a high channel count. So V12s, 8-cylinder engines, sequential stage, that sort of stuff. So that's sort of what made it, yeah.
So the aim was just to provide more inputs and outputs so you can control those more complicated engines that we're seeing these days.
Yes, and my dream's always been engine management. I live it, I breathe it. So it was sort of obvious that I would go into producing one at some stage.
Okay, so there's a lot of engine management systems out there on the market. Obviously, it's a pretty cutthroat business as well. You've got a high-end product, that's the area you're aiming for. What is it about the Emtron product that sets it apart from your competition?
Well, what I did is I realised that the industry already has a lot of good engine management systems, especially in Australia, where we come from. So what I thought was I'd have a look at the product range that's available and then make a decision on which way I wanted to head. Now, in the mid-range and low-range market in Australia, it is very, very competitive. And I felt that there's no point making another one of those ECUs, so it's already been done really well. So what I decided was that I would look at the higher end of the market, and a few ECU manufacturers in the high-end market are really, really high-end. So I looked, there was a massive gap between the mid-range, where most people would use, and then the high end, which is like unobtainable for most people. So I felt there was a window in the market that there would be no competition, and that's where I'm trying to place the product.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now, let's talk a little bit about those inputs and outputs. Now, you've got cars getting more and more complicated. We've got drive-by-wire throttle, we've got variable cam control, we've got Canbus. What sort of functionality have you added in for those sort of features?
Well, what we've done is we've put on board certain aspects. So we have lambda control on board. So we have dual Bosch lambda control, we have dual Bosch digital knock control, and we have dual e-throttle. And there's no ECUs in this price range that exist, let alone that can do dual e-throttles, and that's becoming more popular now with the modern V6 engines that have got the twin e-throttles. We also understand that engines such as maybe a BMW, which has a Vanos, and if you might end up using 8 outputs. So once you've done that, you've pretty much eaten the whole ECU. We've got the ability to connect to those and still have the opportunity to run a boost controller and a thermo fan as well.
Okay, so with these engines, which are using a lot of the inputs and outputs, they're also using Canbus communications. That's becoming more common and more important. How have you dealt with the Canbus scenario?
Well, our ECU has 2 CAN buses on board, so that will allow us to do some factory vehicle integration and also another CAN bus for high speed. In the case where factory might run a slower rate, so we can run 2. We can connect to almost any CAN device, which is obviously where it's heading, because you can make your ECU ever expanding with the CAN bus, but there are limitations, of course.
With the Canbus communications, particularly integration into existing vehicles where maybe we want to keep the factory dash system working, the factory fuel sender, all of that sort of stuff that is communicating over CAN, it can be hard to remove a standard ECU. So with your Canbus configuration, can the end user basically develop their own CAN template or CAN protocol to talk to a factory car?
In theory, that is possible. So if they have the knowledge and the know-how, there's enough tools in the ECU for them to go away and do their own vehicle integration. We've been working on some vehicles, but most of our goal is motorsport orientated at this stage. So at this time, as you can see, they're all wire and ECUs, and we do have a few plug-in adapter options available. But we are, any vehicle integration, we're more towards the higher end, and we'll be doing that in-house and providing that opportunity to plug it in, and you can still have your dash, your air conditioning and everything as well.
Okay, so in terms of your fuel modelling as well, I understand you're using a volumetric efficiency or a VE fuel model. How do you see that as an advantage over a lot of ECUs are still using a millisecond-based fuel model?
I think it's an advantage overall because you will be able to produce a true engine model. So once the user, especially a tuning shop who gets a few ECUs on board and creates a few good engine models, they'll be able to generate a tune very quickly because they can just enter the right parts and put the right data into the ECU, and it will sort of take care of itself. It's not so much of an advantage in the short term for someone who just wants to get a car tuned and get it out the door, but it's the way we're heading, because in more high-end ECU, you're going to need to get more information and get a better engine model overall, and that's why we've headed that way.
Okay, now you've got a high-end ECU and you're aiming at the motorsport market. Let's talk a little bit about some of the software features. What motorsport-specific software features have you got in the Emtron?
The Emtron, every function is, most functions are the same as what other people may have. We've expanded upon that. So every table in the ECU or every function has a 3D table associated to it. So it gives the user the ability to customize that function a little bit more towards themselves, as opposed to more of maybe a single cell settings. You can go in and really just create your own functions within a function, if you like. So they're more extensive expansion of a function that may already exist in other engine management systems.
So more flexibility for the tuner to do a better job and get a better result. How about some of the more mainstream functions that we see in top-end ECUs? Let's say traction control, flat shifting, auto blip downshift, things like that. Have you got those sort of functionalities?
Yes, we specialise more in that side of things. So the gear cut is one of my personal favourites, because most systems really struggle in that department, and I've been working very heavily personally in engineering one of those functions of the gear cut. Throttle downshift, all of that stuff is available in the Emtron. Yes.
Okay, what about data logging? That's really important in a motorsport environment. What's the data logging setup on the Emtron like?
The Emtron has a 64 megabytes of onboard logging. It also has 500 megabytes of RAM, which is available so long as the ECU is powered up. So a huge amount of data logging, and frequency rates up to 1,000 hertz. Wow,
that's a seriously high logging rate. Okay, and also let's talk about how we communicate with the ECU. You're using an Ethernet communications. What's the advantage with Ethernet over, sort of USB, which we're seeing as a more common technique?
One is speed. As most users would know, trying to extract a data log with the USB communications is somewhat time consuming, and I know from my own personal experience in the past. So Ethernet was an obvious choice, and another reason was noise. USB systems commonly struggle to in a noisy environment, especially with CDIs and that sort of stuff. So we've gone down the Ethernet route, same as a lot of other high-end ECUs. So it was an obvious choice.
So faster, more stable, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, look, the product's brand new to market. Obviously, you've got a really high-end product there, and I'm sure that as you go on in a few years' time, there's going to be a lot more exciting developments to come. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us, Scott. We'll let you get back to it.
Thank you very much, Andre.
For online tuning courses, visit learntotune.com.